I've been doing this show for 12 years. Nightlines FM 103.7 on the dial. A small-town late-night talk segment. Mostly lonely people who can't sleep, truckers passing through, or the occasional drunk philosopher who thinks they've cracked life's code. It's quiet work, easy work. But lately, the quiet's been different. It started 2 weeks ago. A new number appeared on the studio call board. Unknown. No ID. Usually spam, but it came through clean. No distortion, no lag. So I answered. Nightlines FM, you're on the air. There was breathing. Not heavy. Not anxious. Measured. Like someone standing in an empty room, waiting for me to speak first. You can talk, friend. You're live. And then a voice. Soft, female, echoing slightly. Don't stay past 1:13. That's all she said. Then static. I laughed it off, made a joke for the listeners. Guess my bedtime's been decided, I said. But when I checked the clock, it was exactly 1:13 a.m. The line had disconnected by itself. That should have been the end of it. But over the next few nights, the same number kept calling. Sometimes silence. Sometimes faint background noise. A hum, like an engine idling miles away. Last night, though, she spoke again. They're almost here. Keep the frequency open. When I asked who, the static deepened, like wind rushing through a tunnel. And beneath it, just barely audible, I could hear voices. Dozens of them whispering words I couldn't understand. I cut the feed, but the meters on the board kept spiking, as if the show was still broadcasting even though the mic was off. I thought it was feedback, maybe a technical glitch. Until the phone rang again. Same number. Same silence. And from somewhere inside the studio, the radio started playing my own voice. The same words I'd spoken seconds earlier. I came back to the station the next night telling myself it was all electrical interference. That's what radio people do. We explain things. Static has logic, after all. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the sound wasn't random. The static had a rhythm, almost like breathing. I even recorded a bit from last night's tape, ran it through the filters, slowed it down, inverted it. Underneath the hiss, there were patterns. Every third burst matched the same wavelength, a frequency too low for a normal broadcast band. The tech guys said it was probably ghost signals, leftover bleed from another station or old ham radio chatter. But we're the only station in 100 miles running that late. That night at 12:56 a.m., the red call light blinked again. Unknown number. Nightlines FM, you're live. This time the voice wasn't a whisper. It was distorted, as if coming through an old tape. You should have stopped. The line's open now. Who is this? You left the transmitter on. I checked, and the board was off. All channels muted, no live feed running. But the on-air light was still glowing. Behind me, one of the monitors flickered to life. An old security camera feed that hadn't worked in years. It showed the empty hallway outside the studio. Only, it wasn't empty. Someone was standing just at the edge of the frame. Still, facing the control room window. I turned. No one there. When I looked back at the screen, the figure was closer. The camera static crackled with the same low rhythm as before. And through the speaker, the voice whispered again. They can hear you now. The sound system popped. All 4 studio speakers erupted at once, blasting that same signal. Every word I'd said tonight began replaying, echoing, layering, distorting into something deeper. Nightlines FM, you're live. Nightlines FM, you're live. You're live. Live. The echo looped, then cut. Dead silence. Only the clock ticking. 1:13 a.m. I didn't go in the next night. I told myself I needed sleep, but honestly I was scared. Not of ghosts or spirits, just of what might make sense if I looked too closely. But when I tried to rest, the radio in my kitchen, a cheap old one I've had for years, clicked on by itself. It wasn't tuned to Nightlines FM. It was static, but under the static was a voice, my own, saying, "You're live." The same phrase, looping, soft, fading in and out like it was coming from deep water. I unplugged the thing and threw it under the sink. The next day I came back to the station with one goal: pull the logs. Every broadcast is recorded automatically, time-stamped, archived. But when I checked the system, the last 5 nights were gone. No files, no timestamps, nothing. When I asked management, they said the system glitched. Probably storage failure. But the log showed something else. Each missing recording was replaced with a fragment labeled Test Broadcast Archive Line 11. I'd never seen that line before, so I played it. It was faint, like an old cassette buried under decades of dust, but I could make out voices. Road closed. Accident. Repeat. Avoid Route 9. Casualties. Local families affected. The date on the recording, October 14th, 1983. Our station didn't exist until 1992. I replayed it, slowed it down. That's when I heard her, the same female voice from the calls whispering through the noise. "We never stopped. We're still on the air." And then another voice, male, trembling. "Is anyone still listening?" I searched the archives again. There were dozens of those test files hidden across old drives, all labeled with dates from before the station opened. Each one broadcasted on our same frequency. The first was titled Test Broadcast 1, Missing Persons Bulletin. And in the background of that static I could hear a faint emergency siren, fading in, then gone. That night, I turned off the transmitter completely. But at 1:13 a.m., every radio in the building powered on, all tuned to 103.7 FM. And through them, the same voice whispered, "You left the line open. Now they know you can hear them." The next morning I drove to the county archives. I told the clerk I was researching the history of our building, a harmless little lie. She pointed me toward a thin folder labeled Municipal Radio Applications, 1980-1995. Buried near the back was a form, dated October 11th, 1983, for a proposed local station. Call sign, WFRX. Frequency, 103.7 FM, the exact same as ours. The permit had been rejected after an unresolved incident involving a failed emergency broadcast test. I checked the address, same street, same lot, just a different name. There wasn't much else in the file except a photocopy of an old article. Local broadcasters die in studio fire, October 14th, 1983. An overnight transmission test turned tragic when a fire broke out in the unfinished WFRX studio. 3 employees were killed. Investigators say faulty wiring may have sparked the blaze. The station was never rebuilt. The photo showed a small 1-story building, the same foundation our studio sits on now. It's the same spot. That night, I went back in. I needed proof. I switched the board to manual, cut every modern feed, and tuned an old receiver to 103.7 MHz for a few seconds, nothing but static. Then, faint piano music, a woman humming along, and then a voice, male, calm, professional. "You're listening to Nightlines FM. Stay with us. We'll be right back." My blood ran cold. Because that name, Nightlines FM, didn't exist until our station rebranded in 2013. The air suddenly shifted, like pressure dropped, a smell of burnt plastic. And then over the faint piano, I heard it again, the whispering chorus of voices beneath the music, layered and desperate. "Don't turn it off. Don't cut the line." The board lights started flickering, meters spiking even though nothing was connected. Every screen flashed the same number, 113. I pulled the plug from the wall. The whole studio went black, but in the dark, I could still hear the broadcast. Faint, coming from somewhere behind the soundproof wall. Someone, or something, was still transmitting. The next morning, I told myself I imagined it all. No station from 1983 could still be transmitting. No signal should exist after I cut the power. But when I walked into the control booth, the on AIR sign was glowing red. The breakers were off. The room was unplugged. And yet, the sign was lit, humming faintly, like something alive. The sound came again, faint music, static, whispering voices. But this time, it wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from behind the wall. There's a narrow maintenance door behind the equipment rack. I'd never noticed it before, painted the same gray as the wall. The hinges looked ancient, buried under layers of dust. When I pulled, it creaked like something breaking loose from time itself. Behind it was a short hallway ending in a second door. Metal, dented, scorched black. It smelled like old smoke and wet concrete. Someone had carved into it with something sharp. "Do not broadcast." I pushed it open. Inside was a small recording booth, untouched for decades. A single microphone sat in front of a half-melted console. The walls were scorched, but the air felt electric, charged, like it remembered something. On the console, a tape reel was still spinning slowly, even though there was no power. The tape hissed, then played back a faint voice. Calm, distant, almost apologetic. "If anyone finds this, don't try to fix the signal. It's not the station, it's the echo." The tape clicked. Then a woman's voice, cracked, terrified. "It's still live. It never stopped." Static. Then the faint sound of fire. That's when I realized the air in the booth wasn't just heavy, it was warm. Smoke curled up from the corners, faint orange light flickering under the console. And then, through the glass window, I saw them. 3 figures standing in the reflection of the control room, faint silhouettes glowing red like they were still burning. They all turned toward me in unison, and the voice, the man from the 1983 tape, whispered through the static, "You're on the air." I ran. Through the hallway, through the empty station until the static in my ears faded. Outside, the sun was bleeding over the trees. The building behind me looked normal. Just a forgotten radio tower at the edge of nowhere. But when I got in my car and turned the ignition, the radio flicked on by itself. The dial spun, 103.1 FM, and then my own voice came through. "Good evening, listeners. You're tuned to the Midnight Signal." I hadn't said those words in days. It was the intro from my first broadcast, replaying perfectly, except for one thing. Every few seconds my voice overlapped itself, one version alive, one echoing back, and the second voice whispered things I never said. "Stay with us, the night's still young." "You never left." I looked at the tower in my rearview mirror. It was glowing, faint orange, like embers in the fog, smoke rising from where the hidden room should have been. The signal meter on my dashboard pulsed with each heartbeat. I tried turning the knob, but every station was the same. My voice, different broadcasts, different years, laughing, crying, pleading. Thousands of me, all trapped inside the static. Then the radio cut to silence, and another voice took over. Smooth, warm, and horribly familiar. "Thank you for keeping the airwaves alive. You've been our favorite host. Stay tuned. We'll take it from here." I turned off the engine and stepped out. The static wasn't coming from the car anymore. It was everywhere. The wind, the trees, even the air. The tower lights blinked once more, then went dark. But somewhere deep inside, a new broadcast began, and this time my voice wasn't mine anymore.